I appreciate that. We checked. Never. Not a single time did the greatest player of all time wear a patch honoring himself. Wilt never did it. Russell never did it. Bird never did it. Magic never did it. Charles never did it. MJ never did it. But your guy, the most narcissistic, self-important human being on the planet, has now done it twice. And he's got more patches coming. But when the king narcissist breaks a record, even though he's a stat compiler and is only breaking records because of his longevity in the league, he wants to make sure everybody knows about it. So he picks the patch. The NBA says, yes, sir, you can wear the patch. We work for you, LeBron. And he embarrasses himself. So he's got one patch for turnovers because he's got more turnovers than anybody in the NBA. And he's got another patch coming for most field goals missed. What an absolute clown.
The moment Craig Carton opened his mouth on this topic, you could already tell this wasn't going to be one of those safe, polite NBA discussions. This felt personal. This felt like someone finally saying what a lot of people have been thinking, but were too scared to say out loud. And the second he brought up LeBron James and that jersey patch controversy, everything just escalated because now we're not just talking basketball anymore. We're talking power, influence, and favoritism at the highest level of the league. And tell them now that he has, I think, made the most field goals in the history of the NBA, which is clearly a compiling stat, that he wants the new patch. So, here's what happened. The whole situation started gaining traction when fans noticed something weird about LeBron's jersey patch situation. On the surface, it might look like a small branding or sponsorship thing, but once you dig deeper, it starts raising serious questions. Why does it feel like certain rules don't apply to certain players? Why does it always circle back to LeBron whenever there's something controversial, but somehow nothing sticks? And that's exactly where Carton came in and basically said, enough is enough. Here's the part nobody is talking about. The NBA has always marketed stars, but with LeBron, it feels different. It's not just marketing anymore. It's protection. Carton pointed out how the league bends over backwards to keep LeBron's image clean, whether it's officiating, media narratives, or even situations like this jersey patch issue. It always somehow ends in LeBron's favor. And when you stack that over a 20-plus-year career, it stops looking like coincidence and starts looking like a pattern. The NBA apparently works for him that they've approved this because they do have to approve it after all that it's time for him to wear a new patch on his jersey. Now, let's break this down properly. The jersey patch controversy itself might sound minor, but it represents something bigger. These patches are tied to money, branding, and league-wide deals. They're supposed to be standardized. But when fans started noticing inconsistencies involving LeBron, questions started popping up. Are certain players getting special treatment behind the scenes? Are sponsors being prioritized differently depending on who's wearing the jersey? And Carton didn't hold back. He basically said what others avoid saying. The NBA has a favoritism problem, not just with LeBron, but here's the biggest example of it. He brought up how other players have been fined, criticized, or even sidelined for much smaller things. Yet, LeBron somehow navigates controversy like it doesn't even touch him. And that's where fans start getting frustrated. You might remember when John Stockton became the all-time assist leader in NBA history. At no point did he wear a patch that said all-time leader, assists. Never did it. This is where it gets dangerous because once fans lose trust in fairness, the whole league starts to feel scripted. And you can already see that sentiment growing online. People are questioning officiating in big games, questioning MVP races, questioning media coverage. And when LeBron is constantly at the center of these conversations, it adds fuel to the fire whether it's fair or not. Let's talk numbers in context for a second. LeBron is one of the most covered athletes in history. Every move he makes is analyzed. Every game is national TV. That level of exposure naturally brings influence. But influence becomes a problem when it starts affecting outcomes. Carton hinted at this by comparing LeBron's situation to other superstars who don't seem to get the same level of protection. Matter of fact, in the history of the NBA, for every individual player that at some point had set the record for the most of blank, not a single one of them ever wore a patch on his jersey to acknowledge his greatness. Think about players like Kevin Durant or James Harden. Both have faced intense criticism, media pressure, and even league scrutiny for their decisions. But with LeBron, even when things get messy, the narrative somehow shifts in his favor. That's not accidental. That's influence. Now, LeBron James is only about LeBron James. For him to want to wear a patch, nobody else wants to wear it. Nobody else is going to wear it. And then you have the media layer on top of this. Major sports networks often frame LeBron as untouchable, almost like criticizing him is off-limits. Carton pushed back on that hard. He basically challenged the idea that LeBron should be immune to criticism just because of his legacy. And honestly, that's where this debate gets really interesting. Because legacy is supposed to be built on greatness, not protection. Here's the part nobody is talking about. When young players come into the league and see this, what message does it send? That if you become big enough, the rules don't apply to you. That branding matters more than fairness. That's a dangerous precedent for the future of the NBA. Now, let's connect this to what's happening around the league right now. The NBA is in a weird place. There's insane talent everywhere. Players like Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, and Victor Wembanyama are taking over. The league should be transitioning into a new era, but instead it still feels like everything revolves around LeBron. And that's not entirely his fault, but it becomes a problem when it overshadows the rest of the league. He's not going to wear a patch that says most missed field goals, which he also has the record for. He's not going to wear a patch that says most turnovers in the history of basketball, which he also has the record for. But he is going to wear a patch of one that says most field goals made. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They try to follow the blueprint of established superstars without realizing the system isn't equal. What worked for LeBron won't necessarily work for them because they don't have the same level of influence or protection, and that creates frustration both inside and outside the league. Carton also touched on something that people don't like to admit. The NBA is a business first. If LeBron drives ratings, sells jerseys, and keeps the spotlight on the league, there's an incentive to keep him happy. But at what cost? Because when business decisions start affecting competitive integrity, fans start noticing, and you can already see that shift. Social media is filled with debates about favoritism. Fans are more vocal than ever. They're breaking down plays, analyzing calls, and questioning narratives. And every time something controversial happens involving LeBron, it reinforces that belief. Let's not ignore the timing of all this either. LeBron is nearing the end of his career. Every season now feels like a farewell tour. The league wants that maximized. They want those storylines. They want those moments. But when that starts bleeding into things like officiating or sponsorship dynamics, it creates tension. This is where it gets dangerous because the NBA's credibility is on the line. If fans start believing outcomes are influenced by star power rather than performance, it changes how they watch the game. It stops being about competition and starts feeling like entertainment in the worst way. And Carton, love him or hate him, forced that conversation into the spotlight. Now, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. LeBron's legacy is already secure. Championships, records, longevity. He's done it all. But controversies like this don't erase his greatness. They complicate it. They add layers to how people will remember him. Was he dominant? Absolutely. Was he influential? Without a doubt. But was the system always fair around him? That's the question people are starting to ask. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Legacy isn't just about what you achieve. It's about how you achieve it. And when there's even a perception of favoritism, it changes how people interpret everything else. And that's why this debate isn't going away anytime soon. Because now it's bigger than just a jersey patch. It's bigger than just one player. It's about the integrity of the league, the fairness of the system, and the future of how the NBA operates. So, let me ask you this. If the NBA really is favoring certain players, is that just smart business, or is it damaging the sport? And if LeBron is at the center of it, does that hurt his legacy or does it prove just how powerful he really is? Because either way, one thing is clear. This conversation isn't ending quietly.